Hello, everyone. Welcome to Better Tech. So today we have Will with us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Will, before we dive into the topic, can you tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you, sort of a quick background on me and what led up to what we're doing now. I've worked in the financial services and fintech industry for 12 years. Over that time, I had the privilege to work on some of the bigger, securities and banking players in the world: Charles Schwab, E-Trade, TD Ameritrade, among a bunch of others. And through all that time, I think there was always sort of a thesis in the back of my head that the financial industry, and really more specifically the fintech industry over the last decade, has done a fantastic job of democratizing access to financial products, to the masses, to retail investors, or whether it be banking products, lending products, to just the masses. And then at some point, I said, well, I think I've sort of done the big company thing, and I wanted to go dive into startups and earlier stage stuff. I worked at a venture firm while I was doing a master's degree, and that was really interesting, seeing sort of like the investing side of things. And then I worked at a company called Copper, and Copper was at the time 5 employees, very young company, and trying to solve the problem statement that probably matters to me more than any other one. And that's, how do you educate young people about finance? And how do you get them involved in financial products? And so I worked at Copper for a while, and that was a really fun product to work on and team to get to know. And then I left and went to build Stack.
Sure. So going through your profile, and I figured that you started with Deloitte. So Deloitte now is a hardcore consulting sort of a company, right? And
Yep.
then you ventured yourself into entrepreneurship. So how does that happen? What was your experience at Deloitte? How it is different in Stack? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Deloitte, of course, massive company. I don't know what it's at these days, but I think it was like 500,000 employees worldwide. So total opposite, right, of a 5-person startup. I think the way that you find yourself to the other side of the table, doing really early stage stuff, there was sort of a spirit ignited me while I was at Deloitte that allowed me to have a really good macro view of what was happening in the industry. And anybody that's worked in sort of the consulting client service business will know what I'm talking about when I say you have a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of different companies, right? And to see their business model, see how they make money, see what their customers care about, see what they're building and new product releases. And all of that gave me, I think, a really comprehensive understanding of where I wanted to go, make a change in the world. And so, the thing about entrepreneurship is it's the school of hard knocks. There is no way to learn other than just doing it and starting something and really going for it. And I inched my way there slowly by working, at a startup and adventure for a little bit. And then I just said, the only way I'm ever going to have this experience is for me to go do this. And so that's really what happened next.
So your current company Stack, would you like to tell us more about that, what it is about?
Yeah, absolutely. Stack is the very clear thesis that I built Stack on was young people are very curious about cryptocurrency. Full stop. That statement right there. I would conduct A/B tests on a few social media platforms, and I would just switch one word, the word stock, to crypto. And when I switched that one word, we would get 5 times the engagement. And it was very clear that this audience was curious about cryptocurrency and blockchain and Web3 and all these words that are sort of buzzing around their social media feeds. But no one had created a platform for them. And in the last 5 years, under 18 banks and under 18 broker dealers, so that's stock platforms and banking platforms, created multiple unicorns. So they created multiple billion-dollar companies that really specifically serve this niche of under 18 finance. but no one had created a crypto exchange platform for them. And there's 309 crypto exchanges in the United States, and none of them had what's called a UTMA, which allows you to attach an under 18 product to somebody in that demographic. And so that's what we did. We set out to be the first, UTMA focused crypto app. It's been the journey of a lifetime. I would say that it took us a year and a half to get live, and that's just because to go do it the right way, we felt like we needed to make sure that our product was really buttoned up, that there was a high level of security. There was a few regulatory decisions that we made. We're actually regulated by the SEC. And so all of those things have really led up to us being live now, and now we're on the App Store, the Apple App Store, and the Android Store, and anybody can check us out.
So how is like Web3 different from crypto? I mean, whenever we talk about crypto, many people, they basically confuse Web3 with crypto, saying that these are the same things. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think Web3 is a word that still is a little bit ambiguous to people on the inside of Web3, to be honest. Cryptocurrency is actually, I think, a little bit of a misnomer as a word too. So when you align those two and try to figure out what the difference between them, the one place I actually like to focus, the one word I'm the most concerned with, and the one that I try to educate most on, is blockchain. Actually, right? Blockchain is the embedded technology behind all of this, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about the blockchain, what I love about the blockchain, and you can read the Bitcoin white paper, or you can, read about other blockchains that are out there like Ethereum and some of the other really popular ones. But at its very core, all a blockchain really is an autonomous ledger, right, of data.
Yeah.
That really was created out of the 90s, where no one had really written data infrastructure to be communicated with each other, right? And so if Charles Schwab, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo all want to communicate transactions of their customers together, what happened in the 90s was they all created their own internal mainframe systems that store data very differently, and silly things like not having first name, middle name, last name versus first name and last name and no middle name, right? At two different companies can cause the data to not talk to each other, right? And so out of that was literally overnight born Plaid and Stripe and PayPal and all these companies that then bridged transactions across, but they were still very imperfect. And so the blockchain was really created to be that data highway, to be that core infrastructure that could have transactions very natively digitally occur. And so when I think about the difference between Web3 and crypto, cryptocurrency is really just the name of the currency that exists on top of the blockchain. And Web3 is really, in my mind, it's anything that's really using blockchain technology, right? And so people have said, well, maybe this would actually be a really good data infrastructure for social media, right? Or maybe this would be a really good data infrastructure for gaming. And so people have used a lot of other use cases, out of it. Smart contracts have been are another really interesting topic that I, love to talk about too. And that's, I think that's kind of the core of what Web3 really is, just blockchain.
So, moving forward, where do you see the potential of Web3 really? As you said, these are like cryptocurrency, Web3. These are not interchangeable terms, and blockchain, of course, is sort of the underlying foundation. Where do you see this going? Do you see like Web3 has some real potential in there, or it's just like a new thing or a new kid on the block, which will just vanish with the passage of time?
Yeah, I think when people when people think about what is the potential of blockchain, or should I go buy Bitcoin, right? This is not financial advice, by the way, but they say, hey, should I go buy one of these cryptocurrencies because it might go up in value, I'd be exponential in value at some point. It's not an investing instrument, and I think that's a really important thing to recognize. These cryptocurrencies and our platform allows you to quite literally buy them and hold them, which feels like an investment to most people. But really all it is it's like buying a share of Stripe or PayPal in the early days of that company, right? And so are they going to be used by big banks or big financial players to go execute transactions for customers? That's the big question. If you look at what JP Morgan is doing, at what Wells Fargo is doing, at what MasterCard is doing, I mean, a lot of huge Goliaths in this industry, they're all building on top of the blockchain. So so from a purely finance perspective, because I could give maybe a very uneducated opinion about gaming or social media or some of these other use cases. I don't know those worlds, they're not my expertise. But from a purely financial perspective, I think it's really not a question of are they going to be used, it's how are they going to be used, because they're already being built on, right? These companies are already embracing them. So my confidence in blockchain as a technology is absolute. There's absolutely going to be ways that it's used. And it's really almost more of a question of how it's going to be used. And really, again, the importance is when you buy a cryptocurrency, you are basically kind of investing in the underlying technology of what that blockchain does. And so Bitcoin is a really easy one to understand because there is no company, right, behind Bitcoin. It's unique in that way. It's like, what if Stripe didn't have a CEO, right? What if Stripe just was sort of this kind of open source code that did this really cool thing? I think that makes Bitcoin pretty unique. And then there's something like Ethereum, right? Ethereum does have a company behind it. But on the other hand, Ethereum has this amazing technology with smart contracts that basically allows you to decide how to repurpose the blockchain to your function, right? And so I sort of think of those two as like Apple and Microsoft in the 90s when the internet was being built. These are two of the biggest industry players. My conviction that they're going to come out of this cryptocurrency, building Web3 building period, on top and probably having some pretty significant market value is very high. And that's just because of who's building on them, who's using them already. How are they?
Sure. So, I mean, what do you think are some of the key challenges or key risks in all this adaptation?
I think the biggest risks that come to my mind when I think about blockchain, so one is regulatory risk. And that's just, a regulatory risk. Obviously, there's the United States regulation, there's GDPR over in the UK and Europe.
And everything,
I mean, there's so many different things that I think it's almost going to be like country to country and potentially even state to state on how cryptocurrency is actually accepted. I'll say this: the financial industry, having been in it for my whole career, my perspective on the financial industry is they're going to find a way to take their cut, and that's just how the financial system works. The confidence that I have in everybody in the United States or in the world having their own decentralized wallet that they go and send cryptocurrency to each other on is not how it's going to be used, in my opinion. I think there's definitely use cases for using that, and there's going to be a smaller group of people that do use it that way. But there's going to be a lot more people that get introduced to cryptocurrency and a blockchain through centralization. And centralization is, obviously like a bank building on top of a blockchain or a company building on top of a blockchain to make the front end of the product something that someone actually wants to use, to make it a good user experience, good user interface. And so that's where I really kind of see the biggest problems, right? Is centralization means regulation. It means sifting through, are things securities, and I think that really is probably the biggest and most centralized, question mark. Outside of that, I think something like Bitcoin, I mean, it's already built. There is no company. It's not changing. And so it's there. But, nothing about Bitcoin is going to surprise us, right? Because the technology is already built. And so it's really how is it going to be used and how it's going to be adopted.
Sure. So, I mean, we discussed that, people use terms interchangeably, Web3, crypto, blockchain and everything. And now there is like something new coming up these days, which is very much talked about, and that's called an NFT. So, I mean, where do you think this NFT fits into this Web3 universe?
Yeah, I mean, NFTs as we see them today, it's maybe this is an unfair comparison, but I kind of think of NFT as something like a very old school web page on the internet. It's something that we're seeing the infancy of, as a technology. The way that it looks now is probably not how it's going to look long term. Is my 2 cents. But I think they're really interesting, and I think where they're most interesting, and this is like something that you'll probably hear from a million different people building in Web3, is NFTs are great for subscription programs, and really, it's like a very unique identifier, right? It's almost like a digital subscription to something or a digital membership, that can't be replicated and that can be basically, passed along to somebody else, through, different digital wallets. And so the technology behind an NFT, I think what's really compelling is, Nike wants to interface all their customers. They have an email list, right? That a lot of people go to their spam inbox or something and don't read the Nike email that they get half the time, or maybe around the holidays or something. They want to buy somebody shoes. They see if there's a discount, or something.
Yeah.
But their interaction with it is pretty low. I think what's interesting about NFTs is NFTs are a way to engage a customer, in maybe a more meaningful way, and do it, over the long term, and offer value to them, And so if Nike, can isolate, oh, we have, 100,000 teenagers that have this NFT because they bought a Nike product at some point. We have LeBron James talking about what it's like to, go achieve his dreams and remember him being a high schooler or a teenager. And we're going to give them access to this event because we think that's going to help them. We think that that's going to, produce a lot of value. And then they're going to associate the Nike brand with LeBron James and giving back to the community and whatever. I think those use cases of NFTs are beautiful. I think they're very brand, aligned. I think, there's a long potential. Are they going to be, animal art, or pictures of monkeys and stuff? I would be surprised if that was the real value, intrinsic value in them. But I think the technology is definitely something.
Essentially, I mean, NFT could be subscriptions, as you said. But I mean, in digital world, people are talking about images or videos being NFTs. So for example, like there is an image on the web and you sort of claim its ownership, and that is your NFT, and you purchase that for maybe hundreds or thousands of dollars. So that is also an area of NFT which is getting very much traction in the youth, especially. So where do you see this particular concept going? I mean, subscription is one thing; it has its tangible value or some benefit, but on the other side, these are all these digital assets. I mean, these are just images or videos. So how do you
Yeah.
compare the two, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like talking about NFTs and the blockchain, cryptocurrency, it's kind of like talking about, I mean, yeah, maybe this is an obtuse, comparison, but like C++ and JavaScript back, as technology is being built. There are two different languages that there are two different purposes, right? There's something about saying, hey, this is what is on top of an NFT, which is an image or a video or something. That's just like the thing that helps you recognize that you have this thing, right? And so if Nike sends you an NFT of, LeBron James's dunk in a basketball game, right, and that's the NFT that you hold, that is symbolic of your membership, right? Just like a membership card that you would have. And really what I think the value is what does it offer you long term? Because yeah, you can watch that video once or you can go watch it again, but owning that digital identifier belonging to this exclusive program, to this membership. I mean, what's different about American Express on their card saying you've been a member since 2010? They say it because they would think that membership is something that people highly value, that they covet, and something that they can offer better rewards to their longer running customers, that have been loyal to them. And so I think that's really where the NFT cross section is.
Mhm.
People think of it as images and videos. That's the front end, if you will, right? That's just what is interacting with them, via NFT technology. But NFTs and blockchain, these are just digital technologies that, I think are meant to make it much easier for us to exist in really a purely digital.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, that brings me to my next question, that all of these things, I mean, they basically relate back to education somehow. I mean, people needs to be trained or told about like what these things are. why they are different, what are their benefits, etc. So, and especially their application in the fintech domain. So, what do you think? I mean, from an educational standpoint, the importance of clarifying these concepts from a fintech perspective or a fintech industry perspective. What are your thoughts?
Solving education, especially for young people, is first of all, I think it's the biggest problem statement that you can take on right now, because the disparity of education that the 1% of the world, the wealthiest 1%, is getting and educating themselves on about digital technology, NFTs, the blockchain, versus somebody that's maybe in the middle 50% of wealth, an average person, is so enormous. The amount of education that 1% gets, and that 50% does not get. And so I think the capability of what technology can do, which is amazing, is we all have these phones in our hands, right? And so if you can educate someone through their phone, and you can democratize access to education the same way that you've democratized access to financial products or so many other things, that's what really gets me excited. That's what gets me up in the morning. And so attaching that to rewards is one thing that we have found incredibly successful, really specifically with this generation. Because I'll tell you right now, as a millennial, I don't know that a $5 reward would get me excited about doing education, to be honest. But to a teenager, it's exciting, and it's proven in our early app time and time again. I mean, we have 65% of teenagers using what will be probably the lowest level version of our education product. And the only reason they're engaging in this is because they get a reward. They get free cryptocurrency out of it. And so we've proven that the learn to earn function actually does work. And I think the next biggest thing that we absolutely have not figured out yet, but is the one that I'm the most interested in, is how do you win 30 seconds to a minute of a teenager's day, but teach them one lesson that's going to stick with them, right? And so maybe it's that Bitcoin is, a data highway, or maybe it's that Ethereum is for B2B transactions primarily as its use case. Like whatever the lesson that you want to teach about the blockchain or NFTs or whatever it is, but attaching that to this reward and then winning that one moment and really getting through their brain, because a teenager sits in class for 8-9 hours a day, right? And they probably get drilled with all this information, and not all of it's good, obviously. And so the way that if you can prove that you can actually teach somebody something in that quick of a period of time on their phone, that's success, in my opinion.
So, I mean, in the end, I would really like to know like what your plans are in the future for Stack. Where do you see the company going? What new products or features you will be adding in the product, and how you see it coming?
The most exciting thing about building what we're building is, one, we work with teenagers, right? Which for at least personally, I really enjoy, because you see the next generation, right? You see what they're interested about. You see they're obviously going to have a tremendous spending power in the future, and so you get to know your customer base really well. But then we also serve a parent, right? We serve a teenager just as much as we serve a parent, because a parent has a cosign on all of our accounts. And so we need to do right by both of them. A teenager wants cryptocurrency. They want to make money. They want a side hustle. And a parent wants education, and they want their kid, to have the most important in the world they can have. And so you're constantly balancing those two things on the platform. And so living on the edge, living in this kind of crazy Web3 world that, honestly, for somebody that's even building in it, sometimes it's hard to stay current with all the technology that's being built and understanding all of it. And so bearing that burden, teaching this group, I think is the biggest thing that we care about as a platform, and attaching that directly to a financial product. Because even though kids don't want to learn about Bitcoin in class, as much as teachers might want to teach it, kids want to learn about Bitcoin right before they prep. And they want to learn it in 30 seconds, and they want to learn it enough so that they have confidence and conviction in what they're buying. And so if you can do that just in time, bite-sized learning on our platform, that's, I think, where we're going to invest a lot of time and where we should of our app.
So there must be many teenagers listening to your podcast as well. So any closing message for them, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I would just say, being a teenager, it's not something that I even forget having been a teenager, now like over a decade ago. I think there's something to that period of time where you're learning a lot. A lot of people are, your schedule is often really busy. You're in school, you might be playing
Yeah.
sports, you're thinking about college, your job. It's a lot of pressure, right? And so I think in that time to be really kind to yourself,
Hmm.
and to invest in long-term future is the most essential component of anything that you can do. And so whether it's on the Stack platform or whether you're on any other platform, I think learning about finance in a modern world is an absolute must. It is a survival mechanism. And you have to learn about it. You have to learn how the system works. You have to know, what is under the hood technology wise too, because it's going to empower you.
Yeah.
And so my message to every teenager would be, obviously like learn financial education, whether it's on Stack or anywhere else, because that's really the goal at the end of the day.
So, well, in the end, I would like to really thank you for your time today and enlightening us with your thoughts about Web3, blockchain, crypto, and fintech in general. So, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for having me, Haseeb. It was great.
Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.